Historically, I usually end up liking superhero films that other people don't like. I go to the theater, watch a film, go like, wow, this is either really good or this is actually pretty great. And then go online and I'm like, let's see what other people think. And it's just outrage. Like, oh my God, this crap is trash and everything like that. And I was praying to all the different deities out there that hopefully Madam Web would be the same. This is my first Sony Spider-Man spin-off adjacent film. I skipped Venom 1 and 2 and Morbius, and I was hoping that this one was actually pretty good. And unfortunately, I am not satisfied. I am not one of the people that are going to be like, this is actually pretty good. Everyone's hating on it for no reason. This is actually pretty disappointing, especially because the premise, the actors, and some of the action is actually pretty decent. So the fact that it just falls short in a lot of the places that are really, really important just made no sense to me. I don't know what they're doing with this Spider-Man franchise at all. But there are a few redeeming qualities, and let's start with that. Let's attack it. Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Isabel Mercado, and Celeste O'Connor try their best with what they're given. They're very charismatic, very likable, and they have great chemistry together that made me root for them easily. Despite, the script and everything not being the best, they rise above it as much as they can, and I think they really give their all and try despite how the movie fails them at every path.
I promise we tried.
We didn't roll over.
The best parts of the film are the silent moments when they're interacting with each other or just not doing any superhero stuff. That's where this feels kind of like a girl trip kind of film where there's a overarching danger, which I feel like this is where that movie was going, and it probably couldn't sell, and they decided, hey, let's make a Madam Web movie out of this. Let's add an IP to it so we can get this idea off the ground. That's what it feels like, because this doesn't feel like a comic booky movie, or they even read the Madam Web comics that much. It's kind of like the Cliff Notes, but these actors really took the notes that they were given and tried their best. The physicality and everything, they did really, really well. Even with the comedy a little bit, they were kind of entertaining. So I really praise the actors doing the best they can and giving the best performance they could with what they were given. And the themes in the movie that was trying to present were interesting, even though they weren't executed to the fullest extent they could. The hero's journey, which is a classic theme that I think that they did okay in this film. The talk about destiny, maybe changing your path or saving the path that you're supposed to go to, and also kind of that manifest destiny, self-prophecy, and found family. There's a couple of different things that you can see it sprinkled into the script a little bit, but they don't hammer it home or execute it really well. But I thought they were interesting ideas. And I think the action have a lot of interesting ideas in there, a lot of action sequences that you don't get to see in comic book movies really, because it's usually people with powers fighting other people with powers, or someone that's really trained like a Hawkeye or Black Widow or Green Arrow or Batman versus someone maybe who have powers or also trained. They can have one-on-one combat and look cool, but this is 4 girls who don't really have any special abilities and training or powers fighting someone that does in Ezekiel Sims. So this cat and mouse thing that they were doing was very different, and I thought was really interesting. And I think the third action sequence was actually pretty good, because we don't see things like that anymore in comic book movies where it's like one location and everything like that. So I actually liked the action pretty much, and I think the actors all did the physicality really well despite the stakes not fully being there. And I like the things that they kind of pulled from Terminator, Final Destination, even That's So Raven, which it was really weird reference to me forgetting that, but kind of what the main character was doing, or like at least the main villain was doing, kind of gave me a That's So Raven vibe. The problem is, even though all these different themes and things that they could pull up from other films or TV shows are there, it's wrapped in like a Morbius like script, and this is where we're gonna get into the bad. Like I said, while the actors try their best to salvage as much as they can, the movie is just written really poorly on all levels. The story itself is not fleshed out, doesn't take from comic book lore to really reel in the comic book fans. It tries to tease like the Spider-Man connections, but never really execute it. It's just like alongside the film, but never really intertwines with it. And in terms of a script, the script the words that these actors have to say is just like, oh my god, you couldn't give them something a little bit more nuanced or detailed. And then the delivery of these lines, you can see that they really didn't want to say these things, but they tried their best. And then on a screenplay, it's just things that happen in this movie, you know, set in the past in 2003. So there's certain things that are a little different with technology and new technology that they're trying to use that feels new for 2003, but that's not new now, and kind of maybe that's supposed to be a theme of a warning of how we use technology that is just not executed really well on all those levels, and just kind of fails all the interesting ideas I just talked about. You know, these writers that are on this film do not have a great track record. These are some of the films that they've done, and other than Power Rangers, they're all terrible. You know, so I don't understand how they even got the opportunity to do this film, and they did the worst job that they possibly could given the great actors they had on board. And worse than the script, worse than the terrible dialogue, the wasted potential is the villain. Fortunately, not only is the villain bland, his motivation's weak, and one of the most boring villains that we've had in a comic book movie or in a movie period in a long time. The actual actor is actually not that great. I heard that he's been good in other films in the past, but this particular film, it seemed like he didn't want to be in it. Unfortunately, he looked bored. He looked like he didn't want to be in the film, and they had some technical issues with him in terms of VFX and CGI and how the character moved and stuff like that, especially since he was supposed to be like a Spider-Man like character but had no webs. It was just really silly, taking the coolest part away from Spider-Man, which makes no sense. And the most egregious and most atrocious part of it is that it seemed like maybe the actor needed to fill in lines in places or redub lines, so when he's talking in some scenes, the words that are coming out the screen don't match his lips.
Cheers! Cheers! You're so good. Hey kids! Y'all all here?
A movie that's a mid-budget film, that's unacceptable, and it was very bad. It really took me out of the movie a lot of scenes. And I do really feel like this feels like a love letter to early 2000s, early 90s bad superhero films. I'm talking about stuff like Green Lantern, Steel, Ghost Rider 2, Daredevil the theatrical cut, Catwoman, and things like that. It's like on that level, maybe a tiny little bit above those films, maybe not, probably on the level of those films. And it feels like it took all those tropes, the reluctant hero that doesn't want to do it but does it anyway because they have a heart of gold, the really cringy lines and inspirational melodramatic things, but they take it so seriously, so you end up laughing at the movie instead of laughing with it or taking it seriously. And just the wonky VFX that looked like it was very rushed. Things that you would see in early 2000 films before the X-Men trilogy era, the Iron Man era, and the Dark Knight era, where they were just throwing films out without really taking the time to respect the source material or what they were doing with the film. And it feels like it harkens back to that in the worst way possible. So yeah, Madam Web is not a movie that's a pure dumpster fire like some people saying it's the worst movie ever. It's definitely not. I've seen way worse movies than this, but it is one of the worst superhero movies that we have in a long time. It's not something I can recommend to go to the theater to see at all. Even if you have like a movie pass, maybe go check it out if you just want to check it out for the culture because you're a comic book movie fan, you want to see what it's about. But if you have to pay a hard-earned ticket to go see this, go wait for it streaming for no extra cost. Don't even rent the film for $6.99. It's not worth it. They didn't put a lot of effort into this film. It seems like they just made it so they can hold on to the Spider-Man IP, and they didn't put any love or care into this film despite having a very great cast all around. So with that said, I'm going to give Madam Web a D. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate Madam Web if you saw it already? I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys are gonna give it F's or zeros or ones. And if you have not seen the film yet, are you still curious to go check it out despite my review and many other reviews, or are you gonna skip it completely or wait for streaming? Drop all those comments down below and let me know. If you like my review, hit that like button, and if you're not a part of the Zack Attack Nation yet, attack that subscribe button and hit the notification bell to be notified for my reviews, reactions, live discussions, throwback reviews, and much more. You can watch more content right now.